Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to another episode of our Tom Talk series. Join me today on this showroom walk around as I want to share with you some incredible and very exciting new arrivals. Where do we start? So, we're going to come back and look at some of these beautiful Porsches lately, but the most exciting new arrival that I have to share with you all is this phenomenal McLaren Grand Prix car. This is the McLaren MP4 22A. Why is it so phenomenal? Why is it so exciting? Why am I so excited by it? Is because this is the car that Lewis Hamilton won his first Grand Prix in, his second Grand Prix in, managed to score his first and second pole positions, also came second at Monza in it, plus Fernando Alonso also won a race in the car. This is one of the most important, exciting, incredible, historied Grand Prix cars that we've ever managed to handle, buy, see, touch, and it's incredible to have it with us today. It's literally just arrived. I was at the British Grand Prix at the weekend. I was going to let Lewis know that we managed to buy this car. Didn't manage to see him, but it is just so special that the most successful Formula One driver of all time, this is the car where it all started. And he didn't just score one win in it, he scored his first two wins, his first two pole positions, also managed a second place, and then just to top it all off, arguably one of the other greatest drivers of all time, Fernando Alonso, also jumped in the car and also won a race. So super exciting. Moving on. What about this? The unicorn of unicorns. Now, I am planning to do a dedicated Tom Talks on this specific car, but I thought we would touch on it a little bit today. This is a car that we managed to buy probably a month or 6 weeks ago. 288 Evolutionis. I have never owned one before. This is the first time that we've ever bought one of these very rare cars. For me, this is the unicorn. When I was growing up, this is a car that I would see in motoring magazines. Never seen one ever before in the flesh. Didn't really know that much about them. And if I'm really honest, since we've purchased the car, I've managed to find out so much more about the model, the car, and all of the other examples that exist. Now, just to touch on a few things, only 5 examples were ever produced. One of them has been in the Ferrari Museum since new. One of them has been with the Sultan of Brunei since new. So only 3 cars are in private circulation. Of the 5 cars that exist, of the 5 cars that were produced, only 3 of them were produced with the real competition engine. And this is one of the 3 cars. This is also the first example of the 5 that was built. This is the car that was used in all the motoring articles of the day, where the road test report, this is the car that was used at Monza. So if you look back on Autocar and Autosport and Weekly and all the great magazines of the 80s, this is the car that was featured in it. And it's also the only one that's road registered. It's a great car. The boys have done a phenomenal job of detailing the car for the last month. We take great pride in the way all of our cars are presented. You know, some dealers just obtain a great car and just quickly want to tell the world. We like to take our time and make sure the car puts its best foot forward. And when I'm looking at this car today, it looks like it's transformed in color from when I bought it. When I bought it off of a very well-known collector, highly respected collector in the UK. But it probably wasn't looking its sharpest. The paint had not been, the car had been used on track days, and the paint had just gone a little bit dull. And we literally stripped the car and done a lot of paint correction, and we're now back up to that Ferrari Rosso, the nice deep red. The wheels, it had the original wheels with the car but weren't fitted. We refitted the original wheels, had them refurbished, put all the correct OZ Racing stickers back on the wheels, so she really is ready to go. Now this car, I think you may have seen from other series that I have my own private 288 GTO, which is the prototype, and it's the second example ever built. It's the oldest one in existence today. I would love to keep this car with my GTO. I think it is the unicorn. It's the unicorn of the Ferrari supercars. Some people, I read comments where some people say, oh, it's not pretty, and then other people say it's absolutely gorgeous. I actually am right on the fence, but the one thing I can see is it is the bridge between the 288 GTO and the F40. It's a car that should sit between the both, and we're really, really excited to have that car, really excited to have bought it, and it's going to be very interesting to see actually who we sell the car to. There are so many Ferrari supercar collectors in the world today, so many Ferrari collectors, but so many individuals that have put together the GTO, the F40, the F50, the Enzo, the LAF, maybe even the LAF Aperta, but you really need the Evoluzione if you want the full Ferrari supercar set. And I tell you, there's only 3 of them, and of those 3 cars, one of them has been owned by the same gentleman from new, so there really is only 2 examples in private circulation. So good luck in procuring one if you don't buy this. So we are going to be, we've already shortlisted some selected clients, and over the next few months we're going to be approaching them one by one and seeing how we get on. Now, it's hard to really do a showroom tour or continue a showroom tour after you start with these 2 cars, but I've been so excited to share them with you that I had to start here. This Lewis Hamilton car for me is off the planet, off the charts, will blow the internet up, and I wanted to share that with you first, but let's move on. So here we also have 993 Turbo S, 993s if they're manual, if they're low mileage, 993s and 355s. I've got the real horn for them of recent years, and I've just been buying them and packing them away. I suppose it's a little bit of nostalgia for me, because when I was growing up, those cars were the cars that were I was more familiar with, seemed more aspirational. You know, these days you see Koenigsegg and Zonders and, you know, Ferrari supercars and Porsche supercars, but back in the 90s you didn't see as many supercars. So the cars that you really fell in love with more was things like the 993 Turbo S or the 993 RS. Anyway, I love those cars, and if any of you guys have got a low mileage example to sell, please call me, because I am the world's best buyer of them. Don't know if you can hear that noise, but I think that's a DB4 GT that's just starting up outside. So moving on, 356 Speedster, 1955, chassis 202. It's the second car built in 1955, beautifully restored, in its original color of red over black. If I'm dead honest, red over black wouldn't be as sought after as maybe black over black, or, you know, a nice interesting blue, but it was a very common color in period, and the gentleman who restored the car wanted to restore it back to its original color combination. And I have to say, I've been using that car a little bit. I used it for a few days back to back. Not only does it drive fantastic, but it is a real head turner, and I actually think I like them in red. So, you know, that car deserves to go to a really good home. It's priced really well, £350,000, so I'd be shocked if we don't sell her quite soon. 911 2.4S, an original matching number car, a fully restored car. I first bought this in 2000 and maybe 11 or 12. Sold it to a really good client and friend, a gentleman who actually owned a Porsche dealership, although he wasn't the day-to-day operator of it, but he was an owner of a Porsche dealership who assembled a great collection of Porsches. That was then, unfortunately, due to private reasons, a few years later, you know, it was sold on, unfortunately, the collection. But this is a car that we immediately bought back and sold it to another great client. It's absolutely on the button, original colours, matching numbers. We've priced this car at £235,000, and I have to say, we are very familiar with restoring cars. We have 21 cars in restoration at the moment, all over the world, and you cannot be given a 2.4S Porsche, restore it to that standard, and it costs you $235,000. It would cost you more than that to restore that car today. So I think that's really great value for money. We've actually had it for sale now for about a month or 6 weeks, and I'm shocked it hasn't sold. I don't think people really appreciate, I don't think there's enough interested parties that appreciate what the difference between a restored car is and a refurbished car. Just to remind you, refurbished means it may have been repainted, retrimmed, had some restoration work carried out, but a fully restored car is when it is stripped back and right the way back to the start and everything refinished. And that is certainly a restored car, and that is certainly bloody good value for money. Grand Prix cars, this is I think I have shared this with you maybe before, this is a Jackie Stewart winning, and it's not very often you can say that, and that's not because Sir Jackie didn't win many races, because he won a bloody lot of races, especially for that period. He is one of the all-time great drivers, but it's not very often you can say that you have a Jackie Stewart winning a Formula One car, for the reason being that they didn't swap chassis in that period like they do in more contemporary times, and Jackie still has a multiple winning car himself, so does his son Paul, so does his son Mark. So if you take those 3 chassis with all the wins that he achieved in those 3 cars, there isn't that many left over. But this is one of them. This is the car. This was the first March to ever win a race. It won the 1970 Spanish Grand Prix with Jackie at the wheel. Really great car, been owned in more recent times by McLaren boss Zak Brown, and I purchased the car probably a couple of years ago with my aspiration to take her back to Monaco for the historic Grand Prix, where I think she's been on pole twice in contemporary years. I'm not sure if I'll be able to live up to that expectation, but I'm going to give her a go. Now, this is another McLaren Grand Prix car that we have actually recently sold. This is the Jensen Button winning MP4 25. It is also a car that Lewis Hamilton drove on no fewer than 6 different occasions. It's the F-Duct car. It's the car that Button won in China. Really great history. McLaren sold it to arguably their most important worldwide client, who we managed to purchase the car from earlier on this year, and it's off to a great home. It's off to a real racer, a guy that is absolutely, I'm taking him down to McLaren in a couple of weeks' time. We're going for a seat fitting, and he is getting this bad boy out on the track. We're going to see him in the next few months. We have my Williams cars here. You can see we're on a real Formula One love spree addiction. We just love Formula One cars, love Grand Prix cars, but I have never, in all of the Grand Prix cars that I've ever sold, I have never handled one that hasn't won a Grand Prix. I am probably a little bit too fussy when it comes to that, and many people offer me cars and always go, Tom, it's a great car, why are you so hung up on the fact that it hasn't won a Grand Prix? But I just love Grand Prix winning cars, and all of these cars that you see here have all won Grand Prix, and you know, multiple Grand Prix on, definitely on the Williams. You know, this is a car that won 2 Grand Prix and had loads of fastest laps and loads of pole positions. This FW15C is arguably the most advanced car pro rata in Formula One history. 3 wins, also came second to Senna at Monaco, came second to Senna in his famous Donington race. Damon Hill drove the wheels off of this car in '93, or the wheels of the car drove Damon, one or the other, because it was just such a phenomenal car. And I feel really privileged actually to have managed to have bought this car from Williams, and I think it's a very special car in anybody's collection. Now moving on to some of our classic cars. Lamborghini Miura, I've owned that car for many years, right-hand drive, very low mileage. This is a car, a Dino, that we have in stock for sale. We bought this car about probably 18 months ago, and we decided to, it was in really nice condition, but we decided to put it back to its original color combination of viola metallizzato. And it was also very interestingly and very unique that in this color combination with Daytona seats from new. So I believe it's the only example that was actually built in this specification. Some people feel that, or comment that this is probably the ultimate Dino spec, where it has as designed from new narrow arches and not the flared chairs and flares, but it does have the chairs, so it does have the Daytona seats. It's a really beautiful car, been recently prepared for sale by Nick Cartwright. So our boys in-house done all of the disassembly. We had the car painted by our own dedicated paint shop. We reassembled in-house, but then we sent it to Dino expert Nick Cartwright for all the mechanical work, just to go through it, just to make sure it's absolutely on the button, and it definitely is on the button. Priced at £450,000. This is one of those cars, and I feel like there's so many cars in this showroom at the moment that you know, I always try and stick to buying the cars that I like, because I feel like if I like them and I believe in them, then I'll be able to sell them better, and my team will be able to sell them better because they know how great of a car it is. However, I have never known a time in our business where we have got so many cars in stock that I would just love to keep for myself. Like, I would love to keep this Dino. I love Dinos anyway. I'm not a particular GT fan, I'm more of a GTS fan. I like open cars, and I'm the one who always states colors make cars, and this is such an interesting car, interesting color, very rare, beautiful, just beautifully refurbished, and it is a car that I'd kind of like to keep, or I'd kind of like to give it to my wife, but unfortunately you can only have so much money, and I need my money to operate with, so unfortunately on this occasion I won't be keeping her. 330 GTS. This is a reference restoration, simple as. So it's a total matching number car, included engine, gearbox, chassis, body, but it's just a reference restoration. This car is freshly restored by the best in the business. So Cremonini have done all of the bodywork and cosmetics. Lupi have done the interior, but underneath the bonnet, all of the mechanical work has been carried out by the great Bonini. Now, Bonini, they're just the best in the business. It's as simple as. Are they expensive? Yes. Do I need to probably take 50 mortgages out to pay all their invoices? Maybe. Do I have to wait years to be able to get one of our cars in there? Yes, because we've got so many other cars just queued up waiting to go in. But I just think they are the best. And this car has been restored in Italy by the experts, the mark and model experts, and it hasn't been driven a mile since. We bought the car in 2020, obviously had that COVID period, which meant that the restoration took a little bit longer than we first anticipated or hoped, but what an opportunity for a buyer today. $2.5 million. There's a couple of 330 GTSs coming up for the Pebble Beach, Monterey auctions, and they're, I think, guide priced at something like 2.2 to 2.5 or 2.2 to 2.7. You have to pay a 10% buyer's premium on top of that. You would also have to pay, if you're in the UK, 5% import duty. This car is cleared in the UK. It's priced at $2.5 million. You don't have to, you couldn't put a car in restoration with these experts tomorrow anyway, because too many of my cars are queued up, so you'll never be able to get in. But this is a car that you don't have to go through the pain of waiting 3 years. You don't have to spend 450,000 euros restoring it, because it's done. Stick your number plate on it, use it, take it if you want to Villa d'Este next year or Pebble Beach, because it's so perfect it should be shown there, or just use and drive and enjoy it. Anyway, I'm shocked that that car hasn't been snapped up, and should be snapped up very, very quickly. 275. From a distance, you could easily misunderstand this car. You could look and go, ah, there's a nice 275. Oh, is that a GTB2? Oh, it must be a GTB2 because it doesn't have the bulge in the bonnet, so it's not a 4-cam. This is one of the competizione cars. So 12 of these cars were produced, only 4 of them built in right-hand drive. These are so different to the normal 275. These cars are, they were built by the racing department. They were built in order to go racing. It's an aluminium body, but it's half the thickness of the normal aluminium body 275s. It's got different compression ratio. Everything is tricked up. You know, aluminium floors, magnesium bell housing, special camshaft, special carburetors. Anyway, we've done a dedicated Tom Talk series on this car, so if you haven't watched it, go into the episodes on our YouTube channel and watch it, and it will educate you much more about this specific model, but they are very, very, very special. I nickname them the Series 3 250 GTO. That's how great they are. Lamborghini 400 GT, beautifully restored, really beautifully restored car. We are going to be launching this car for sale in the upcoming weeks, so I'm not going to share too much info on that car at the moment, but just a really beautiful car, super rare. A lot of people in the last couple of weeks when they've been in the showroom, actually, they've sort of gravitated towards this car because it really is a very unusual design, and you just don't see many of these cars around. So it'll be interesting to see how we get on with it. Lancia Flaminia 3C 2.5 litre sport. Now, mini Ferrari 250 short wheelbase. You know, look at the grille, look at the headlamps, look at the beautiful double bubble roof. It has very nice styling, intricate details like the rear tail lamps. This is coach built by Zagato, which was the premium coach builder of the day. Not many of these cars were built. Lancia in the 1950s, 1960s arguably made the greatest cars in the world. This is only a little bit over £300,000. We don't have a 250 short wheelbase to park it next to at the moment, but a 250 short wheelbase, you know, we sell them for sort of 10, 11, 12, 15 million dollars. This is just over £300,000. It's beautifully restored, a bit like the 2.4S. You couldn't restore this car for the price that we're asking for it today. It feels like it's a bargain. Somebody should definitely snap it up, and I would say take it to Concours events, but actually I think this is just a really beautiful car to drive, really super cool car to drive. 250 Eleanor. Now, speaking of bargain of the week, car of the week, deal of the, oh actually it's too cheap to say deal of the century, although I feel like saying it. Total matching numbers. 250 Eleanor, I wouldn't say it's in Pebble Beach condition, but it's beautiful. Just a really beautiful car. Unbroken provenance from new. Is offered direct from one of the most important collectors in modern times. He's owned the car for 30 years. The original certificate of origin is signed by Enzo Ferrari. There's letters within the history file from Enzo Ferrari. I mean, how much value does that add on a car? And we have priced it super aggressively to sell the car. We're not a museum. I know we look like a museum, but actually, believe it or not, we are a used car dealer, and we try and knock the cars out the door and get as many sales as possible. And for that reason, £600,000. £600,000. Like, in dollar terminology, that must be $750,000. You know, I think that is incredible buy for someone. You know, are 1950s GT Ferraris from this era, are they as popular as they once used to be? Certainly not. But you know, this 365 GTC here, which is, I have to say, probably maybe the best driving 1960s Ferrari. You know, it's 4.4 litre V12, nimble, a great car to do events in, rallies, use and enjoy. But many years ago, an Eleanor used to be way more money than a 365 GTC. And now a 365 GTC, we have verbally agreed to sell this car to a new client in North America, and it's like £600,000. I thought this car, actually, when we priced it, we bought it very well, and I'm not going to say we were a victim of buying the car well, but we just wanted to price it aggressively in order to sell it, and we sold it within a week, or we've agreed to sell it. You know, very rarely are we ever let down by clients at this end of the market, so I anticipate that the deal will go through without any problems. Moving on, if you see the diversity of our stock, and I think you should get a better feel for it once I show you a few more things, but we've touched on Grand Prix cars, we've touched on Ferrari's hierarchy, supercars, we've touched on some Lancia and Lamborghinis and the great 1950s and 60s and 70s Ferraris, and then we go into pre-war Bentleys. If you're a car guy, if you really, or lady, car girl, car guy, if you are a car individual and you think you're a collector and you don't have a pre-war car, or you've never owned a pre-war car, you're not a collector. This is where it all started. You know, driving this 4.5 litre Bentley that I bought many years ago, I think I managed to break all sorts of world records on how much I paid for it, but I didn't mind because I was buying the best of something, and I'm never shy to pay up if I'm buying the best of something. I just don't want to buy great value if it's got a story to it, if it has a caveat to it. This car certainly doesn't have any caveats. As I say, broke all sorts of records, so I probably will be keeping her forever, and it's a good job that I love her. But we have this other car that's arrived into stock, and as special as that car is because of how well restored it is, and it is perfectly restored, it is the reference restoration in pre-war Bentleys, this car is so original. You know, original body, original chassis, original engine, and you don't see many VDP Vandenpla 4.5 litre open Tourers that can boast all of those attributes, their original engine, body, and chassis. Many of them have been converted to VDP style open Tourers over the years, but this was born in this style. Really, you know, really great car, and we're asking under £1 million for it. Under £1 million, I don't want to be blasé. £1 million is a hell of a lot of money, but I think that's really good value. Gullwing Chassis, I think it's 650075. This is a car that I sold back in 2013. Sold it to a really important client, and we have just taken it back from him because we have just sold him a really special and unique Gullwing, and that's the only reason why he decided to part with this car, just because he bought something from us that was absolutely unrepeatable original spec. So we've taken this car back in. It's beautiful. We've sent it to Martin Cushway, who is a really good 300 SL specialist in the UK. I think he's the best. I love talking about other great people in the car world, because you know, there's plenty of people in the car world that are not particularly good, and when you do come across the really good people, I want them to do well, because they do such good work and they do good work for us. And Martin Cushway is a great guy. If you've got a 300 SL in the UK, send it to him and send it nowhere else. So he's prepared it for sale. We don't like putting cars for sale that need much work doing to them or need a major service. This car hadn't been serviced much in the last 10 years. You know, thankfully, Martin said it was actually a really good car and we didn't need to spend that much money, relatively speaking. But we just wanted to make sure it was on the button. Original colours, originally delivered new to, there's a famous racing legend, Jim Hall in America, and it was delivered to his brother new. Then it had long-term ownership in the US. It's on the button, ready to go, priced at £1.5 million. Moving on to this DB5, just a no excuse car, you know, matching numbers, properly prepared for sale, cosmetically on the button. We sent this car to another great specialist in the UK, Spraytech. Spraytech are great Aston Martin people. They're experts when it comes to David Brown era cars. We have something with them at the moment that is off the charts that we're restoring. Off the charts. Wait until we share this with you. It's incredible. Definitely going to Pebble Beach. Anyway, this car being prepared for sale by those guys. Long-term ownership, original colours. By the way, isn't it nice not to see a silver birch DB5? Like, isn't it nice to see a Dubonnet Rosso car or a nice dark blue Sierra or black maybe? Just every DB5 you see is silver birch. And yes, James Bond, we all love him, but don't you think it's just a little bit boring? So great car, priced at £645,000. Now, if we're going to talk about Aston Martins, and we're going to talk about great Aston Martins, then let's talk about this DB4 GT Lightweight 18 TVX, one of the great Aston Martins. This is a car that, you know, was famously piloted in period by the great Aston Martin drivers, was run by the Essex Racing Stable. It's now in its original colour, exterior and interior. It's just absolutely perfect. Moving on to something even more special, but DB3S2 works car. Mille Miglia history, Le Mans history, driven in period by all the great people, you know, Roy Salvadori. This is the car that Peter Collins famously bought from Aston Martin. This is the car that really got Peter Collins his Ferrari works drive. Just a very, very, very special thing. Moving on, let's go to the supercar world. The modern hypercars, supercars. I want to start with, as much as I love the 488 Pista, forget the 488 Pista. We're not going to cover every car today. I could take you next door and show you another 30 cars. We're not going to bother doing that. Lexus LFA. What a great analog monster of a car, a beast of a car. V10, you know, the analog supercars. Porsche Carrera GT, probably a Lexus LFA. Great engine. I found this car on my travels actually at over Christmas, New Year. I was on holiday with the wife and kids, and I went to look at a Pagani Zonda to buy. Got bored at the beach after a couple of days. Went to look at the Pagani Zonda and fell upon this car. One owner from new, was owned by the gentleman who owns one of the largest and most successful Toyota dealerships in the world, and he had the normal LFA and the LFA Nürburgring edition, and decided that he was only, or I convinced him that he should only keep one. It's done 1,300 miles from new, one owner from new, and is serviced every single year of its life. Only 2 of them is in this color combination, this pearl brown with this interior. Just a great car, like it just ticks every button, ticks every box. And when I talk about cars and, you know, cars with no excuses, I just cannot, there's always something wrong with the car. You can always go, I wish it was a different color, or I wish it never had 3 owners, or I wish the mileage was a little bit less, or I wish it had some of the features that people like. That car just ticks every single box. So priced at £650,000, dollar terminology, what is that today? Less than $800,000. Seems amazing value for money. McLaren P1. Now, what do you think of this livery? I would like to say that McLaren saw us post this car and then decided to change their Formula One livery for this weekend. That obviously brought them an immense amount of success with their fantastic 2nd and 4th place finish. Well done, Lando, well done, Oscar, well done, Zach and the team. I was there with them at the British Grand Prix, and it was an incredible atmosphere, and McLaren back to being super successful. What better to see for any Brit? Super excited. And the livery of this car, as I say, was very much like the livery of their Grand Prix cars, but the livery on this car was actually inspired by the McLaren F1 GTR chassis 1R that won Le Mans. That's where this livery came from. That's in its testing days. We have great images of Mika Hakkinen with that car before it went to Le Mans, before it won the race, before the legend became the legend. And this is the only McLaren P1 that was finished in that livery. 1,300 miles from new, 2 owners from new, and we've priced it at £1.25 million. That, I think, is I really believe in these cars. LaFerraris have shot up now. We're selling LaFerraris for sort of north of £3 million. We're selling 918 Spiders. We've just sold this 918 Spider that we'll get into in a moment, and that's, you know, like £1.6 million. And then P1 for me feels like it's due a jump up. 550 Barchetta, right-hand drive, 1 owner from new. The mileage is insane. It's like 1,319 miles. 1,319 miles, 1 owner, UK supplied, right-hand drive. We haven't put this car for sale yet because, although I mentioned earlier that I feel like every car we've got in stock at the moment are cars that I would like to keep for myself. Can't afford to do that on too many, unfortunately. This is a car that it is killing me to offer for sale because I think they're going to shoot up in price. I think they're going to be worth way more in the years to come. I think this is the best one on the planet. It's definitely the best one in the UK. Bought it from a friend and a client, and I really feel like keeping this car, so I have held back my decision, and we've held back our launch and selling it. LaFerrari, UK car, black, Sabia leather interior, less than 1,000 miles. We've actually sold this car twice since it was delivered new. Cars stay with us. You know, when we have a great car, I really don't like them coming out of our close circle of clients, you know, and when we sell a car, we really want to make sure we put so much effort into buying that car initially that we want to make sure that we get the car back should it ever come for sale. And then Porsche 918 Spider. This is another UK car. Actually, it's quite rare to see so many UK cars because these cars, European spec, they were, you know, we sell lots of European spec ones and buy them from all over the world. But this was a UK car. It's an original Weissach, but was delivered new with the standard wheels. The client didn't like the Weissach wheels. Low mileage, really nice car, factory black. And we have agreed a sale on that car. Ferrari F50, 20,000 kilometers from new. Everyone loves an F50 these days. You know, a manual V12 open top Ferrari supercar. Doesn't get much better than that, does it? What we are going to do with this car, even though it's in very good order, we have reserved a spot with Bonini, and we're going to send it down there and get them to mechanically go through it, because they'd done that on an F50 we sold about 6 or 12 months ago that some of you may remember, and it was just like a piece of artwork. You know, you opened the engine lid and it was just absolutely perfect and mechanically worked, was on the button, and I think this car deserves that. Finally, you know, we're back. We've done a full circle. We've got our way back, found our way back to the Hamilton legend, where it all started. We've got some 355s here. These are cars I mentioned earlier with the 993s that I've just been trying to buy all the great ones and pack away. But then how can we ever do a showroom tour and not finish on the Lauda legend? The 312T, 6-time Grand Prix winner, including Monaco. It's the car that brought all of the success back to Maranello after John Surtees had won the 1964 championship. They had an 11-year span of no success. Nicky comes in with Luca de Montezemolo, the dream team, and they just destroyed everybody. And you know, this car won the 75 World Championship, and then in 76 won its first 2 races, and then had maybe a second or a third, and then they decided to change the regulations. Ferrari were just a little bit too good, a bit too hot. This car they couldn't cope with, so they banned the tall airbox. And the rest, as they say, is history. Now, we have so many other great cars to share with you. I just don't want to bombard you with a video that's too long today. Next door, we have lots of other cars. We have 21 cars in restoration, but I hope you've enjoyed the most up-to-date showroom tour, and stay peeled, because we are going to do some dedicated Tom Talk series on the 288 Evoluzione and definitely the Hamilton legend.